Chelsea have just beaten rivals Tottenham Hotspur by 1-0, but unlike the scoreline suggests, it wasn't close at all. Chelsea dominated Spurs from start to finish, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at how they did it. We're going to be breaking down the tactics that Enzo Maresca used to help Chelsea not only stop Tottenham, but exploit their biggest weakness and claim those all-important 3 points. Chelsea imposed themselves from minute one in extremely impressive fashion, exposing Tottenham's biggest weakness, the way that they look to build and create opportunities. This featured throughout the entirety of the game, and Chelsea managed to restrict Tottenham to just creating 0.05 XG. Incredibly impressive, but how do they do it? To better understand that, we need to understand what Tottenham like to do during their building phase. In pushing players forwards, they like to drop their centre midfielders back to receive the pass and then move the ball forwards. But the problem that happens is because Palhinha and Bentancur aren't necessarily comfortable in progressing the ball forwards, what you tend to get is their inability to find their teammates in those attacking areas. Chelsea compound this problem by creating a man-mark zoning system, meaning that Enzo, James and Caicedo move themselves onto the midfielders, creating an incredible amount of aggression and pressure. This then leads to and helps with their fellow teammates in pressurizing the other players, meaning the players on the wing, and in particular looking to pressurize the defenders that are looking to get the ball into the midfielders. This meant that Tottenham lost the ball more often than not. In fact, during the game, they lost possession 41 times during their building phase, a new record for them this season. What Chelsea then did so well is occupy the area that you can see here, the zone that was created between Tottenham's midfield, or their building midfield, and their attackers, and that's exactly the zone that a player from Chelsea can then start to go forwards, nick the ball, and then go forwards the other way, creating those dynamic turnover counterattacks. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is Tottenham in their building phase. You've got Danso on the ball currently, but let's take a look at those Tottenham midfielders that they want to get the ball to. You've got João Palhinha and you've got Bentancur. Look at them being pressured by both Reece James and Enzo Fernandez. The pass isn't on there, so they need to find somewhere else. He can't go wide because of Pedro Porro's positioning and the way that Garnacho is cutting off that pass. Not to mention the fact that he's also being pressured by João Pedro Danso. And that means that he only has one option, and that is the run from Pat Matasar, who's dropping deep, to help overload that area. But Moises Caicedo, with his fantastic aggression and his ability to win the ball back, is just pressurizing them that little bit further. I thought Caicedo was the best player on the park in this game. He was absolutely sensational everywhere, and he was integral to everything that Chelsea did brilliantly off the ball. In this particular scenario, you've got Pat Matasar dropping deep. He receives the pass, but you've got Caicedo pressurizing really well. Look at how Chelsea want to win the ball high up the pitch. They do so by forcing a turnover, and the way they did that was through that incredible aggression. Look at Caicedo here onto Pat Matasar. Look at Garnacho looking to pressure Pedro Porro, and that forces a poor pass backwards. It's that pass that then gets latched onto by João Pedro, and he drives forwards. Unfortunately, he's not able to score and convert this chance, but it was a real blueprint as to how Chelsea would look to really punish this poor Tottenham building phase. And although Chelsea were brilliant off the ball, they were just as good on the ball, looking to really highlight and put pressure on both Danso and Van de Ven, keeping them honest and keeping them conservative, preventing them from being aggressive into midfield and start to overload that area. The next phase is pinning Garnacho and Neto on both of those flanks, spreading that defence and spreading that midfield as much as possible. The next phase is to look to really overload that midfield, control the tempo of the game, something that we know Enzo Maresca really likes to do. But instead of shuffling a player into the base of that Chelsea midfield, because you had Caicedo and Reece James, Malo Gusto made that run forward into that attacking inside right channel, allowing for Enzo Fernandez to move into that left. I thought Enzo did a brilliant job of linking with Garnacho in this particular case, and he was a threat throughout the game. But this is exactly what you've got. That imbalance for Tottenham now, that 4v3 advantage for Chelsea to allow them to start to dictate the tempo of the match. And then what have you got? You've got Tottenham with a massive conundrum. Do they A, move their wingers in field, leaving those 1v1 situations, or do they drop them back? Tottenham in this particular scenario opted to make themselves really narrow, which in a way is a good thing. But what you're then doing, as I said previously, is isolating Garnacho and Neto onto those Tottenham fullbacks, meaning that they then have the option to have overloads themselves on both the left and right channels, allowing for Chelsea to have another moment of dominance. And this right here highlights that attacking phase so very well. You've got Reece James on the ball just at the heart and the base of that Chelsea midfield. But at the same time, what have you got? You've got Caicedo just next to him, and you've got your two attacking midfielders in those inside right channels. Tottenham have looked to really battle this and combat this by moving Xavi Simons really in field. The same can be said for Mohamed Kudus on that far side. They're trying to make Tottenham really narrow. Thomas Frank doesn't want Chelsea to go through the centre, but that's all right because that's exactly what Chelsea want. Chelsea want to utilise the entirety of the pitch. They want to utilise those flanks, and in doing so, they're isolating those 1v1 duels. But we mentioned Xavi Simons being really in field. Look how narrow he is to try and prevent that passing lane into Malo Gusto. But what that does is have a massive knock-on effect for that right-hand side, because as the ball gets played out wide, look at the amount of space that Pedro Neto is in currently. This forces a huge run from Xavi Simons to try and make that pressurising run. But notice the positioning of Malo Gusto here. He's here to help Pedro Neto, and although he's being followed by Joao Palhinha, what you've then got is a 2v1 situation in this particular example. You've got Joao Palhinha dropping back that little bit more. You've got Malo Gusto on that last line looking to make a run in beyond. But let's just take stock of what Chelsea are actually doing to Tottenham here. Remember, this is a huge game for Tottenham and they want to go and win this. But look at what Chelsea and what Chelsea's attacking phase in particular is doing to this Tottenham defence. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players almost in a line. It's like they're playing a back six, and that is no way for Tottenham to go forwards. Chelsea have Tottenham exactly where they want them, in a dominating position. The ball goes through towards Malo Gusto, who is able to then pick his head up and find a cross. Look at the way Joao Pedro has been able to find himself in quite a bit of space in the box. This shouldn't be allowed by Tottenham, but it is. The cross is fantastic, and Joao Pedro arguably should score, but it's yet another huge chance for Chelsea, which gave them a massive amount of momentum. And finally, guys, before we end, let's take a look at that all-important goal, the goal that won Chelsea this massive game. To begin with, we've got Jed Spence, who's dribbling with the ball. Pedro Neto is pressurising him. Now, what you might notice is, although we mentioned previously that Chelsea were utilising a man-mark system, what actually is really interesting here is the players they were previously marking aren't the same ones, and that shows a real harmony within the squad. It also shows a huge understanding within the squad and within the team of the roles that they expect of not only themselves but their teammates, and a huge highlight of that comes up in just a little bit. Jed Spence pushes forwards and he gets pressurised by Pedro Neto. He gets the ball back from Bentancur right here. As he moves forwards, something happens. You've got Moises Caicedo, again, like I said, the player of the game here. He jumps from Mohamed Kudus, he was previously marking Mohamed Kudus, and goes to pressurise Jed Spence. Now, as this happens, just on the top of your screen, you have Enzo Fernandez. I want you to keep your eye on Enzo Fernandez right here, because what Moises Caicedo does and the way that Enzo Fernandez reacts to this is sensational, and it proves a massive harmony and understanding within the group. So, Moises Caicedo jumps to pressurise Jed Spence. Look at Enzo Fernandez. He's sprinting over to Mohamed Kudus because he understands that his teammate has left his role to help the entire side. Really impressive. He's now gone to mark, but Moises Caicedo has won the ball back. Huge. Now, as the ball gets turned over, Chelsea are able to go on the attack, but the ball gets given away yet again. Unfortunate. But in this case, it goes into some free space, and instead of dropping your head, moving back into your position, Moises Caicedo says no. This is why he is a special player. He drives after this pass. Incredible work, incredible off the ball work, and he manages to pressurise Xavi Simons, who moves back to Van der Ven. He makes a huge challenge onto Van der Ven and then wins the ball back and drives forwards. As he drives forwards, it's then about creating chaos. It's then about driving towards the penalty area, driving into that box to make sure that you can create an opportunity for your team. Danzo tries to come across, but look at that movement right here. Look at that touch that Moises Caicedo gets on onto the ball before Danzo. Huge. He wants it more. Massive. And then you've got two players on the edge of the penalty area, two completely free players because Pedro Porro didn't follow either runner, and they are free to hit it home. João Pedro is the one that takes the shot. It is sensational, and it is a huge, huge win for Chelsea, and look at what it means for Enzo Maresca. How does he feel? I bet he's feeling so good after this win. But of course, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I thought Chelsea were absolutely fantastic. Tottenham, less so. But like I said, let me know your thoughts. Thank you ever so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.